Alright, we're continuing the series. We're on the back half here, I feel like. Like after Days of Futures Past, we're in a new version of the X-Men series. We have Apocalypse on this episode. And I remember the first time I watched this movie. I came from the theaters like, this movie is A, solid A. Like, oh my gosh, 100%, it's so good, it's so good. Like, I was in love with this movie when it first came out. Besides one scene, and I was like, that one scene kind of threw me off when I watched it in theaters. And then I remember my friends hitting me up like, yo man, that movie's not as good as you think it is. Everybody else kept like saying this on their reviews. I looked at the critics of it and I was like, I don't understand what people didn't like about this movie. And then I watched it again for this review series. And I think this is probably my third time ever watching this series. Or watching, not this series, but watching this movie again. And I can see why people have some problems with X-Men Apocalypse. But is it really as bad as people want to make it out to be? I'm gonna break that down on this episode of Movie Breakdowns. What's up world? Welcome to another episode of Movie Breakdowns. I'm your host, Ali Zakka. What's up world? Welcome to another episode of Movie Breakdowns. I'm your host, Ali Zakka. What is Movie Breakdowns? A movie review series where we look at new and old movies, give them a grade, 8 through up, plus and minuses do count. And there's a movie you want me to watch, let me know. Please put in the comment section below. I get to it as best I can. I also have a Patreon. It's Patreon/Ali Zakka. And you pay for my services on Patreon. You get movies immediately. When you ask me to do a movie review, I go find it and do it because you're paying for my services. I don't want to disrespect you. Also, you get first come, first serve. You get reviews before they come out on Facebook and YouTube. You get trailer reactions, first thoughts, and much more stuff on my Patreon. Now, let's go ahead and get into today's review of 2016's X-Men Apocalypse. And before I get into spoilers, and we're gonna get into my real first thoughts, what is this movie about? Well, this movie is about the return of Apocalypse. There's a mutant whose name is Apocalypse. He wakes back up from a slumber and the X-Men has to stop him. That is purely the main premise of the story. Now, is that the only storyline in this story? No. And I think that's where it hurts this movie. I think the fact that there was so much more going on in this movie, what hurts the movie to a lot of viewers, so people watching it are like, okay, what's this and what's that and what's this and what's that? Why is that happening? Why is this happening? Why is this build up? Why is that building up? And I think that's what makes this movie suffer in other people's eyes. But when I watch it, and maybe because I even follow the X-Men series, like when it came out in theaters, I was watching the series. I've seen every movie up to the point. So when this movie came out, which is the third in the new lineup with the new class with I'm gonna call it Henry McAvoy, but James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender with the new lineup. This is the third movie in that new lineup of X-Men. Also, it's kind of like a rewrite from the first three movies that came out in the early 2000s. So if you didn't follow the series, you probably been like, I don't understand this movie. What's this? What's that? What's going on here? And this movie does have a lot of fan service. And also, before I jump into it, before I get to box office, in the earlier movie reviews of X-Men I've done, I remember saying in first class, like, I'm going to do Logan after Days of Future Past and then do Apocalypse, because I thought they were interchangeable. Not really. Actually, Days of Future Past, that Wolverine is the Wolverine in Logan. But the events for that Wolverine, I guess the past Wolverine to meet the future Wolverine, this is that event to get them there. So, and also you meet a character in this movie that's in Logan, so you have to watch, not really have to, but you should watch Apocalypse before Logan to understand like, oh, that's that character from X-Men Apocalypse. Also, Logan came out in 2017, so it was like 1 year apart from each other. So, Logan comes after Apocalypse, and I decided to watch it. Not in that order, but before doing the reviews, I should say, reviewing the series, this is going to come out before Logan because that's how it came out in theaters, and that's the correct timeline now that I know that. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get into the box office stuff on this movie, because the movie came out in 2016 and it is 144 minutes long, which, you know, it's not really that bad. 2 hours and 24 minutes, not really that bad. It doesn't feel like a drag out movie. The movie doesn't feel long. I think the movie is, timing wise, it's okay. Like, you're gonna watch this movie and don't feel like, you're not gonna feel like, oh my gosh, I'm spending 2 hours and 24 minutes sitting in this chair watching this movie. You're gonna be more like, okay, a lot of stuff is happening and we're moving fast. But I'm gonna get in the box office. Box office here. So the budget was $178 million. Opening weekend, it made $65 million. However, cumulative worldwide, it made $543 million. So it made its money back. It made its money back. And I wouldn't be surprised. This is directed by Bryan Singer. And he pretty much been on the X-Men series after what, Last Stand. So he's been around, and the writers you have in this movie are Simon Kinberg and Bryan Singer. So they helped write the movie and a few other people. And I think where this movie suffers the most, this is my get back to my first thoughts, is the fact they try to do so much in this series, in this particular movie. They try to set up the Dark Phoenix character. They're setting up, you know, the original X-Men, I guess the well-known X-Men group. So you got Cyclops, you got Jubilee, who else? You got Nightcrawler in this, you got Havoc in this, Quicksilver's in this, you have Storm, you got Psylocke, you got Angel, you got Mystique, Magneto. You have all these characters in this movie. Wolverine is in this movie for some reason. And they try to set all that up. And then they also try to set up the Wolverine Weapon X scene that you see in almost all the movies where it involves Wolverine. They try to set that scene up in this movie for some reason that seemed out of place. And I think this movie just had a lot going on. It had a lot going on. So therefore, the movie was about Apocalypse. But I don't, if you look it up, he's, say what, first 5 minutes of the movie. Then he's back in it in the first act. I feel like he disappears in the second act. Shows up at the end of the second. Disappears from the beginning of the third. Shows up at the end of the third act. I feel like Apocalypse wasn't really in this movie as much as it made him seem like. You had a lot more about Mystique, a lot more about Charles Xavier, and Magneto. And by the way, freaking Michael Fassbender, Magneto in this movie is phenomenal. And it's actually one of the reasons when I first watched it the first time, I gave it such a high grade because, and this is before I started doing critics, so this is before I started actually reviewing movies. It was because Michael Fassbender's portrayal of Magneto is so good. I don't know what it is with the directors and writers wanting to mess up a character who legit wants to be happy now. Like, he has a family and kid, and he loses that all in this movie. And you're just like, my heart for Magneto. Why won't they let him be happy? Just let him be happy. He tries to leave. But I think that was like him being Magneto, and the Magneto scenes just captures me. Just be honest, just captures me. But Michael Fassbender delivers so much emotion to that character that you had no other choice to feel for Magneto. First Class builds up Magneto. Days of Future Past builds up Magneto. So when you see Magneto in this movie and you see what he's been through, you feel for him. And Logan actually, I feel like, does a good job on capturing that as well. And I'm going to talk about that in my next review. But these two movies with those two characters, Wolverine and Magneto, the storyline for them is done so well, that I almost like, why I gave it the high grade I did the first time I watched it, because of just that character and Michael Fassbender acting for that. Also, the Quicksilver scene in this movie. I'm getting spoilers now, guys. It's 2016, 2021. Getting spoilers. The Quicksilver scene in this movie, freaking love it. I love it every time I see it in this movie. It's not as good as the first one. It's not as good as Days of Futures Past, but it still holds up pretty well. And the character, his facial reactions when he's doing stuff. Who is Quicksilver played by? Let me pull him up real quick. Evan Peters. Evan Peters, who plays Quicksilver. His facial reactions in the scene in the movie where the mansion's blowing up and he's going in and saving everybody is freaking phenomenal. It's a scene that is definitely worth to watch just to see that over again. And I love it. I love Quicksilver and I love Magneto, but everything else about this movie is fine. It's fine. The cast is still a great cast. Everybody does a job pretty dang well. You do not have any complaints about anybody. You don't compare like you're not watching maybe like, man, that person's overacting or that person's like underacting. No, they're giving a good delivery of the characters and I feel like they all did a good job. Like, so the grading that people get in this movie, I feel like the heat this movie gets doesn't seem warranted. Now I remember a lot of people was like, well, Apocalypse is not big and bad like he is in the comic books and all this stuff. And you basing the movie off the comic books. Yeah, this movie doesn't follow the comic books pretty well. But if you're watching the movie just as a purely moviegoer and just want to watch the movies and don't really care about the comic books and you just love an action flick, this movie does its job. Visually, it is done so well. The artwork and the design, the CGI, and the colors of the movie is done really well. It is visually a pleasing movie to look at. You look at some of the scenes, you're like, man, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. Music. The movie has a little more, got better music than the other X-Men movies, like some more memorable music. Like, for example, the scene where Apocalypse takes over Charles Xavier and launches the missiles up in the sky. There's like a little more classical tone playing in the background. Like, the music is pretty done really well. But as far as like the villain, Apocalypse, as a villain in this movie, he's not really a good villain. He's not really written out thoroughly well. I still don't really know what his true objective was in this movie. Like, at the beginning of the movie, he is putting his body in somebody else's, putting his conscience in somebody else's body, take over their body so he can live longer. And when he put his mind in somebody else's body, he adapts to their powers and abilities. Okay, so he's transferring himself. But then he chooses Charles Xavier. And he's going to transfer his conscience into Charles Xavier. Which doesn't really make sense to me in a sense because, one, Charles Xavier given the access to look at, I guess, access everybody's mind in the world so nobody can turn against him, but he's also putting himself in a weaker body. And maybe, this is probably me overthinking, but maybe he can find himself to walk, because Charles Xavier can't walk, so he is technically putting himself in a body that not going to be able to move around freely unless he has, you know, access or a wheelchair or whatever the case may be. So that threw me off for a little bit, but he decided to shift his thing from world domination to taking over Charles Xavier within the last 40 minutes of the movie, and you're just like, what is your goal here? Was it take over the world? Because he had a chance to nuke the whole world. He legit sends send missiles all the way up to the sky and just launch them straight into the atmosphere instead of having them flip around and go back down to Earth. And you can say, well, they destroyed, you know, Cerebro, so it couldn't happen. But it was like, okay. But he had launched the missile codes. Why didn't he just have them shoot each other? And a lot of people will say that. That's like a lot of people will say in the movie, like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I agree, that part doesn't make any sense. Writing wise, it was like, why did he do that? Like, he just, like, what was his goal? Like, was it world domination? Is it conquering the world? I don't know. Or maybe just trying to, like, flex, a weird flex by pointing the missiles up to the sky. It's like, hey, I can control the missile launch. Okay. But then after that scene, you have the cool Quicksilver scene, and then you have, you know, Stryker appearing out of nowhere, talking about we alerted the power of a psychotic force, a magnetic field coming from this place, and they just decided to capture a bunch of mutants and take them back to Weapon X area to work on them, Alkali Lake to work on them. And you get the cool Wolverine scene, but it's unnecessary to have Wolverine at this point. But they did it anyway. And I just feel like that scene with Mystique, Beast, Quicksilver, and Moira McTaggart all in Alkali Lake, the Weapon X facility, just seemed unnecessary for this movie. That's the one thing I think this movie suffers from, that part right there. It shifts. It complete shifts from the storyline you had. You had Magneto going through his crisis in life with Apocalypse, then that scene which shifts out of nowhere, and then back to Apocalypse, and you're just like, what is going on? What is going on? And this movie has a good point of hitting the Magneto storyline, because you grow with Magneto, like I mentioned earlier in this review. You grow Magneto, so you get to see all the things he's going through. And anytime they, like I said before, anytime they do Michael Fassbender and Magneto's storyline, you get swept up in it. You want to see, like, oh, he's trying to, you know, live his life with a wife and kid, and now just be quiet in a, you know, I think it was in Poland, and just hide out. But when one of his co-workers is about to get killed, he uses magnetic abilities to save his co-worker. So to save a life, he ended up putting the life of his wife and kids in danger. And when that scene happens and you see that scene break down, you feel for the character, and you really want, like, man, what if this movie was just about Magneto trying to, you know, live his life, and he realized that he can't. This movie would be a better movie, matter of fact, you look back on it. I know why they put Apocalypse in here, because it's a way for them to introduce Dark Phoenix, which is in the climax. But if this movie was just Magneto and him trying to be living his life and trying to have a better life, and it just keeps going wrong, and that keeps triggering him to go attack and try to you know, rid the world of humans, and just say, you know, forget it. I'm sorry, my House of M storyline. You know, there's other things with that goes involved, but you know, it was some version of that. I think that would have been a lot cooler, to be honest. I think would have been a stronger movie than the movie we got. And the movie that we got was, like I said, I still enjoy this movie. I think it's okay. I just think that storyline would have been a much better storyline, and maybe Apocalypse probably shouldn't really been in the movie, but I think they made Apocalypse because they're making Dark Phoenix, so they was trying to figure out a way to bring these characters in they could put into the Phoenix saga and the final chapter of this X-Men storyline, which I've not seen the movie yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it because the next one I get to watch. But yeah, it's the Magneto storyline is a much stronger one than the actual storyline of this movie, and that's where I think the movie should have focused on. But you know what? Props to the writers and director. They did the best, I think, with what they had to give. Alright, let's go ahead and get into characters. So, the cast here talk about James McAvoy as Professor X, Charles Xavier. Still great. Still a great character. Charles Xavier, James McAvoy does a great job with them. Michael Fassbender as Magneto, Eric Lencher. Magnificent. Phenomenal. Michael Fassbender, like I said, he made you feel Magneto's pain and sorrow. He made you feel the fact that he wanted a family now, and he wanted to leave his past behind and say, you know what? Humans not going to change. Mutants not going to change. Let me stop trying to conquer the world. Let me just live a family here and enjoy my kid, enjoy my wife, and be in this place. And his daughter's like, what, 9? 10? So it's been a few years, actually. I'm not sure what year in the 80s this one happened in, but it's been a few years since the events of 1973. And there's a scene where Magneto returns to the camps that I can't think of the name of it right now. The Holocaust camps. He went back to that in the movie, and I'll say Auschwitz. I'm sorry, guys. I can't think of the name of it right now. I'm blanking out. It's just horrible because it's a very tragic event that happened in real life that happened to a bunch of people, and it's really tragic and sad. Auschwitz, but it was for the Holocaust at the Holocaust camps. And I'm sorry for those I don't remember the exact name of it. but it was a very tragic and horrible place. And the emotions you feel for a character who went through that, and like just think like the writing for that character was somebody who probably experienced that, and just like what they could do, they could have destroyed that area, and he does it, and the tears go down his face, and the release, and it's a really powerful scene. I believe Apocalypse repeats to Magneto what he said in his speech in the end of Days of Future Past. I feel like that's the same thing. I need to go back and watch that scene over again because I feel like it is. Matter of fact, actually he does not. He does not use the speech from Magneto's speech, but it would have been a cool touch if he did. Oh well. Alright, so yeah, Magneto did a great job. Jennifer Lawrence as Raven / Mystique, she did fine. She was okay. Didn't mind her. Nicholas Hoult as Hank McCoy's Beast, thought he did good as well. Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. I didn't mind Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. Now, was Apocalypse threatening to me? No. Did I feel like I was in, like, any of the characters in trouble with him? No. But, yeah, I thought Oscar Isaac did a good job. Rose Byrne as Moira McTaggart. She did great. It was cool seeing her back. Evan Peters as Quicksilver. Freaking great job. Who else? Sophie Turner, which is... Every time I see Sophie Turner, and then I saw, Peter Dinklage in Days of Future Past, I was like, man, Game of Thrones entered my X-Men movies. But yeah, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, I thought she did fine. Ty Sheridan as Scott Summers Cyclops, he did good as well. Lucas Till as Havoc, great. I messed this guy's name up, I'm sorry. Cody Smith McPhee, who plays Nightcrawler, thought he did good as well. This is a list of people, man. You got Ben Hardy as Angel, Alexandra Shipp as Storm, Lana Condor as Jubilee, Olivia Munn as Psylocke, which I was cool to see Olivia Munn in this movie. I thought she could have a better role as Psylocke, but regardless of the fact, all these characters did good. I didn't mind them. And that's, I guess, me kind of nitpicking about Olivia Munn's Psylocke, the fact that she didn't really have much lines, but I kind of wish she did, but it's fine. Also, you have here a guy who's in X-Men, or I guess Logan, Caliban, who was played by Thomas Lumaquis. It was cool seeing like, oh, Caliban's in this movie. I didn't even recognize him because in Days of Future Past, not Days of Future Past, but Logan, he's in Logan. No idea. I don't think it's the same actor, actually, that's in Logan. But the Caliban character was in this. And then, of course, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine always does great. That's pretty much your cast. That's pretty much your cast. I don't think I really missed anybody else. When I did, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's the cast. Alright. Music-wise, I already talked about. Tone, setting of the music of the movie, great. Didn't mind it. Only thing about this movie that's really... looking back on it, really was probably the problem is the storyline of it. The storyline of just having too much stuff and the side plot, Magneto's plot, having more weight behind it than Apocalypse himself. I think the writers kind of messed up on that. I think they would have gave more Apocalypse more built up on it and give Apocalypse a little more something where the people could have got attached to him, like Thanos maybe, or something where like, oh, I see why he's doing this versus just, I'm going to rule the world. Like, in the third movie, it doesn't feel as much. And we'll see how the fourth movie handles it. But yeah, it really doesn't. But yeah, it's a Friday movie. Yeah, it's a Friday movie. Watch with your friends and family in grade time. I'm going to grade X-Men Apocalypse a C+. It's a C+. Really, why? It's better than the first original 3 X-Men movie, I would say. Well, I'll put it on par with the second X-Men movie. Better than Last Stand. Just, the storyline of it's not the strongest. It's not the strongest storyline. You get introduced to so many different characters, and the ones that you do get attached to Magneto's storyline and the Quicksilver scene, especially Magneto's storyline, not even the Quicksilver scene, that scene is awesome, but the Magneto storyline, which should have been the focal point of this movie, and you bring in another character who doesn't really have a focal point, who is just there's a big bad. You've seen it before, but it's not a horrible movie. Like, people will say this movie's not that good, which I don't understand why, because unless you're really mad about the fandom of it, as a regular moviegoer watching this movie, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. So it's a C+, because the cast is still great, the music's still great. You're not going to complain about anything. The CGI will be like, oh, this is fine. It's just that storyline and just so much is going on, so many different characters, and that weird Alkaline Lake scene that you're just like, why is that there? So C+. It's a C+ movie. If you guys seen X-Men Apocalypse, what'd you think? Please put in the comment section below. Other than that, see you guys in the next episode of Movie Breakdowns, and keep being awesome. Thank you guys for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Also, you want to see what else I'm doing in my normal life and other things that's going on, please follow me on Instagram at Ali_Zakka. I'll put it right here around my face. Yep, right there. Also, if you want more episode of Movie Breakdowns or Grind Towards Success or whatever it is I'm doing on YouTube, you know what? Follow my page right here, like I said before, the little comment thing right there, And then you can watch the last episode of Movie Breakdowns right here, and watch the last episode of Grind Towards Success right there. Other than that, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all. See y'all next time. Keep being awesome.